Well, here we are, and it's stories worth telling, and I'm just so happy to be here together with you, Mildred Devine. What a lovely day we're having, and
Beautiful.
yeah, finally, spring has come, we're getting away from COVID, and it's just been such a year. And I had the privilege of meeting you at a luncheon the other day, and it was a polka dot luncheon, and here you are,
here
gorgeous.
I am. This is not the same outfit, however.
But gorgeous. And I heard on that day that polka dots are a sign of spring.
Exactly.
I always think of polka dots and then seersucker. I always
Yes.
had like a little seersucker dress or outfit when I was a little girl.
Yes,
So,
yes.
And I was just so happy to meet you on that occasion and heard about the book that you have just authored. And I'm just so excited to find out more about that. But before we jump into that, let's find out a little bit about you, Millie. I know your name is Mildred, but you said nobody calls you Mildred unless it's your school teacher who is probably scolding you like, did you clean up after yourself, or whatever it might have been that you maybe absent-mindedly forgot to do. So here we are, Millie Devine, my guest today. And let's start with where you're from and what your journey might have been early on.
Okay. Delighted to be here. It's nice to get a chance to interact with you, Kate, and you have a very impressive bio yourself.
Oh, thank you. I wouldn't say so, but yeah,
well,
I'm just living the
think
dream.
it is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
But anyhow, yes, I'm a local girl. I was born right here in Lawrence Memorial Hospital.
Wow, not too
And-
many people can say that.
No, and believe it or not, I'm living in the house that I grew up in. Did not expect to be there all my life, but as you know, life takes twists and turns along the way.
But hey, you didn't stay there your whole life. That was your first home, and now it's your home currently. And there were
yes.
probably some other homes in between.
Yes, apartments and a private home in Boston when I went up to school in Boston. And as it turned out, once we took an apartment with a former classmate of mine, we ended up in Boston at the time of the Boston Strangler.
That must have been really scary.
It was scary.
Because did you have cooking privileges inside?
No, we did not.
So you had to go out to eat.
Well, by the time I had the apartment, yes, we could cook in the apartment. But when I first went up there, I was in a private home with 2 other students, and we did not have kitchen privileges. So we went out to the Busy Bee. It was like a diner, and believe it or not, it's still in existence.
Oh my gosh! I'll have
I've been
to look
to it
for
since I've been, out of, away from Boston.
Where is it?
It's right on Commonwealth Ave. Beacon Street.
Beacon Street. I'll have to look
Beacon
for
Street,
it. And
yes.
it's a diner.
And
What was your favorite thing on the menu?
I was a big French toast person.
Comfort food.
Yes, exactly,
yes.
exactly. So, and it was not terribly expensive and all of that.
Of course. Yeah. Well, you get your
but-
egg and you get a little bit of starch.
Yes,
and,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
Good for
exactly. We usually with maybe a couple slices of bacon or something like that.
There you
I had
go.
to enhance it, particularly if it was breakfast time or supper time.
Whatever. Breakfast
Yes.
for dinner is the best.
Exactly, exactly. But anyhow, I worked for a company that I got the job through the school, and it was Hub's Engine Company, so an engineering firm
Okay.
that dealt with boats or ships, motors and all that kind of thing for big
And this
ships.
is up in the Boston
This
area.
is in the Boston area.
Okay.
And they were located on Commonwealth Avenue. And by the time my roommate and I took an apartment, we graduated and we'd taken an apartment, it was very close to within walking distance of Hub's Engine
Oh,
Company.
that's so nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry about the MTA and everything else at that stage of the game. However, there were some interesting experiences. You mentioned, the Boston Strangler that we had mentioned. That came a little later when it was in 62 to 64 is when that was going on in Boston.
That was
And I
scary.
started in 61, so it was,
I remember those days. Those were
Yes.
scary days.
They
and
were
I was
very
in
scary.
the other part of the country. I was in the Midwest. I'm back in Nebraska. So I still heard about it. We all, it was on the paper.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, absolutely. So I talk about that in the book. So I'll leave that for readers to enjoy.
Okay.
But there was another experience writing the MTA.
Well, you're from here, where there wasn't public
Right.
train.
No, you either rode your bicycle or you got a car or, whatever. But in Boston area, basically rode the MTA getting to work and also, or in school. And I met a dear friend. We're now friends for 60 years.
I love that.
At the MTA stop.
I love that.
Yes.
Just a serendipitous opportunity to connect, and then here you are.
Absolutely.
Lifetime friends.
Yep, absolutely. And we watched her courtship with her husband.
Sure.
When they finally, got married and had kids. Her children are the closest I have to having a niece and nephew.
Oh, I love
Yes,
that.
yes.
Beautiful.
And so I'm still in touch. I'm in touch with her on a daily basis.
Nice. Is she still? Is she probably mentioned in your book? I can't
yes.
imagine life
Oh,
without.
yes.
Yes.
Yes. And she had an experience which also tied in with the Boston Strangler, which is what made me think of it.
Oh. What's her first name?
Burl.
Burl. Beryl.
Correct.
Burl. Okay.
Hobart. Yes.
Okay.
And
we'll look for that when we read your book.
I have to tell a funny story on myself. When I lost my sister, well, yeah, I think it was at that time. She had come down from Maine. She
Lost your sister, like she passed away?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, that was in 2000.
It still hurts.
And yes, it does. It does indeed. And I talk about that in the book. But she had come down from Maine, and apparently I kept to be with me. And oh dear, just lost that train of thought.
It's okay. So already we've talked about some
a number of things.
well, grief and adventure and loss and perseverance, and already I'm getting the gist of what your story is about. It's going to be kind of a roller coaster of life and following through with that.
Exactly.
So your sister came down from Maine one time?
No. This is Burl, who came down from Maine at the time that I lost my sister.
Okay.
To be with me.
So she comforted you.
Yes, exactly. We've been through so much over the years together.
And that's what happens. That's the best part, I think, about
a close friendship.
A close friend will help you to recover.
Yes.
And I lost my son 11 years ago, and it was one of my best friends who helped me to come back because at one point I was just like, put a blanket over me, right? But now
you're so stunned because it was a sudden loss.
Exactly. I'm sorry.
So we get into that. As I said, the name of my book is Sunrise, Sunset. And
I love that.
That is from Fiddler on the Roof.
And I was going to say, the song comes into my head.
Exactly.
Sunrise. You don't want me to sing, probably. yeah.
Well, but it does. It's sunrise, sunset, and through the years. And I don't remember growing older. These are some of the words from the refrain kind of thing. And I thought, through the happiness and tears. Isn't that what life's all about?
It is what life is all about. And with the sunshine and the brightness of your eyes, I don't think that you've gotten any older, to be honest with you. I can see those little eyes in your face as a little first grader. And you said your mom was your first teacher.
My first grade teacher.
Now, I am a speech pathologist by training, and I always said parents are the child's first teacher. But in your case, your mom was.
A first grade teacher with 38 children in that class.
That's a lot of kids.
It is.
I have pictures of myself in first grade. There were 42 or 44 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, there were no aides or assistants or anything else at that stage of the game.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So what was that like, having your mom? Were you teacher's pet?
No. No, I was not. She treated me like all the other children, and everything was fine. I don't recall if I probably even called her Mrs. Devine.
Probably.
Yeah, to be,
Probably.
proper. Yes. However, coming up through the ranks in the school system, because I'm graduating from Waterford High, first graduating class of Waterford High School.
Congratulations! And you probably get to go back for some of those reunions.
Oh yes, we had more fun planning the 50th reunion that we have kept in touch. We said we don't want to disband the committee. Right. So we've been staying in touch and get together at least 3 times a year for a lunch and all of that. And then once a year we get together for a picnic.
Nice.
And we were supposed to have had our 60th reunion last year, but we're having it in September this year to make up for last year since we couldn't be together.
Right. Well, the pandemic was tough. And I think just coming out of it right now and seeing your face without a mask or
I know. That luncheon that we mentioned where we met, I felt so liberated. I was giddy. I felt like a schoolgirl. And I said, what's oh, it must be the pandemic because I've been isolated for so long.
Well, just to have a conversation.
Exactly. And face to face.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So life is good. So you went up to Boston and you were working for Hub Engineer. Yeah. And that worked out for a little while.
Yeah, I was in Boston for a total of 3.5 years.
Okay. Not long enough to get the accent, but...
No. Although I had friends who were concerned by my going to Boston that they'd never understand me. But anyhow, yes, I was there for 3.5 years. And let's see, about 6 months before I left Boston, the company moved to Route 128 out in the Woburn section.
Yeah. I used to live in Massachusetts. I know where that is. That's on the inner loop, right?
And no public transportation out there.
That'd be a problem.
So, yes, and I was under 25, so I had to have a car. I had to pay the compulsory insurance just like the boys, same rate, all of that. And so it was costing me to work there because the company moved, but they didn't give us any raise in pay to compensate. So I was home for the holidays chatting with my dad, and my dad and I were very, very close.
And what was his line of work?
He sold Wonder Bread.
Wonder Bread?
Yes.
Helps build strong bodies in 12 different ways.
Absolutely, you got it.
I loved those commercials,
Yes, exactly. And so I was home talking with him and saying, I don't know what to do, because I felt guilty calling in sick and going out looking for another job.
Of course.
So I started talking with him, and he said, well, they've been good to you. Why don't you go back and give them a month's notice, and then you could move home.
Aww.
And, I thought once you're out on your own, that was it. There was no turning back. I hadn't even considered moving home.
Kind of in those days, I think we were a little less of a boomerang kind of thing.
Yes. Exactly. But anyhow, he laid it all out in a business way and said, you won't get vacation this year, so plan on taking a couple of weeks for yourself.
Nice.
And then start looking for a job.
What a great dad.
Yes, he was wonderful. Absolutely fabulous. And so anyhow, I went back, gave notice, and I moved home. When I got home, he had found out from his branch manager, which goes back to the days of Hartford National Bank and Trust Company.
Okay.
Who the human resource person was, and so who I would interview with and all this. So when I got home, he presented me with the information that this had been referred by his branch manager and his assistant and all
would
this.
You be interested?
And I think a nice place for a young lady to work would be a bank. And I said, oh, well, I hadn't thought about what I was going to be doing or anything else. I got as far as figuring the 2 weeks vacation, and then I started looking for a job. And so I didn't want to feel like Daddy got me the job. That was not in my book.
Right.
Little Miss Independent.
I was going to say a little bit of independence is good. We need that.
Yep. Exactly.
Strong-willed. Good.
Yes. And so I started answering ads in the paper and going for interviews, and I just couldn't find anything I was interested in. And finally, I took myself down to the state's unemployment agency. And I walked in and I said, I'm out of work. And, oh, you want benefits? No, I'm here to get a job.
Right.
And they said, oh, well, then you need to come over here and meet with our interviewer. So I sat down with her and said, what I was looking for and all that. So she said, well, we have a bank looking for a secretary.
Oh, perfect. Because you had secretarial skills.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's what I went on to school for and all that.
Okay.
And so I said, oh, what bank? And they said, well, we can't tell you unless you're willing to go for the interview. I'll go for the interview.
Of course. Of course.
I ended up interviewing with the same lady.
Oh.
Same name, same bank, as my father had gotten information on. But,
nice.
Yes. And
again, serendipity, right?
Right. I happen to think, and particularly as I've gotten into discerning things over my lifetime and everything else, I think, it was part of God's plan, and that's why the subtitle to my book is Millie's Divine Journey, because I feel it was part of his plan, and he was using my father as a messenger. So,
that's really profound, and even us meeting, and we sat next to each other, and 3 feet away because we had to have social distancing, an extra chair between us kind of thing. And I believe that too. I think that connections happen for a reason.
Yes. So that's how I ended up getting at the bank and started as a secretary. And I was with Hartford National and its successors, Connecticut National, Shawmut, up until Fleet came in and took over.
So 4 different organizations,
Right,
basically,
but it was the
same job.
It was the same holding company, Hartford National.
Holding,
was a holding company.
Okay.
And so then when Fleet came in, I was forced to take early retirement at age 55.
That's young,
Yes.
especially for
Well,
you with all of your energy and spirit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, retire. I knew that was down the road, but I certainly had not given much consideration to the possibility of retiring.
So what did you do? It's hard to retire when you're young and have all these ideas.
So I said, okay. They forced the decision to take early retirement because I had the magic 85, 30 years invested in the retirement plan and age 55.
Yep.
So, okay, how do I put what I've learned to good use?
I don't know.
So I had about 6 months to figure this out. The day after the boss
Gave you
forced
right.
the decision,
Right.
because they insisted that it was my decision. But
And you have to sign all these forms, blah blah.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because they don't want to be held liable.
No,
Right.
no. So anyhow, the next day after he had forced that decision, it was over coffee in like a half an hour. I mean, he came, he knew that decision was going to be made. So he just, forced it and then assumed I made it. But anyhow.
Not a lot of tact, huh?
No. So the next day, he calls me and tells me, oh, the bank wants to throw you a retirement party. And I said, no, thank you. I'm not interested in a party. Oh, yes, it'll be fun. And, all this. Well, I said, this is when a lot of the mergers were going on and Fleet was acquiring not only smaller banks, but large banks and having to amend all the policies and retirement plans. Yes, absolutely. So they couldn't tell me what I'd be getting in retirement or benefits or anything like that. So I told them that I was going by what Fleet had as their program right at the time that the decision was being made, and that I expected to get, full retirement and medical benefits.
Good. For life.
For life.
Good for you.
Yes. And I said, and by the way, this is on the phone conversation with him, and I said, if by any chance Human Resources is not able to come up with details by the time we have the party, the bank will host a party without the guest of honor, because I will not show up. Well, the party wasn't until December, so from July to December, they had plenty of time to figure out what they were doing and get information to me. So I went off to sort of the dreaded party. But when we came back from coffee that day after he forced the decision, he informed the person who was going to succeed me that she was going to be staying in New London because I'd be retiring in January, and she would not be going to New Haven after all.
Oh.
So, and that was fine by her. She didn't have any problem with that. But, I mean, it was literally boom, 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 everything was done. He had his plan in place.
Yeah. He had his plan in place. He was playing a game of chess, and you were just doing your job, basically, kind of blindsided with that whole thing.
So, walking into that retirement party, Tom Galato, who was the executive director of Child and Family Agency at that time.
Lovely.
Yes, and we'd been friends. We'd been in Rotary together. We were, as I said, we're friends. And Tom said, I've been thinking. I know you've got your application in for a nonprofit, but have you ever thought about starting your own business and consulting with all of us?
Because you had that business savvy. You'd been working in the banking business, so you understand.
Yes. And so a light bulb went off in my head. And the pieces just started falling into place. Again, the Lord's plan, not mine. I just followed along at this point. Not quite as independent as I was 32 years previously. But at the same time, so I ended up starting my own business.
Which was what?
Divine planning.
Oh, love it. And what did you plan?
I worked on grants advising because I had administered private foundations, the Franklin West Palmer Fund and the Bowdoin Wine Public Benevolent Foundation, as well as a couple of others, but these are the biggest ones known to this area in particular. And so I had administered those. So I read all the grant proposals that came in. And I didn't approach grant writing as a grant writer, but as the grant maker.
Right.
So I could give them pointers as to how best to make it an enhanced application
Oh, nice.
and that kind
Very
of thing.
nice.
And so I ended up teaching. While I was working as Divine Planning, I was teaching through Connecticut College's Continuing Education Division. And then when they gave that up, I went with New England Adult and Continuing Ed and taught there. So I taught for many years, and often it was 3 courses a semester, or 3 courses a year.
Right, right, right. And those are evening classes typically.
Yes.
Are you still doing that?
No, no, I'm not. No, I've been away from the foundations too long at this stage of the game, not directly involved, because when Fleet came in, we were notified in 95. In February of 96, those foundations got moved and centralized to Hartford. So I no longer had the foundations. So I haven't really been involved in foundation. Well, I did a little bit with Eastern Connecticut Community Foundation, because while everything was going on and working through the bank and all this, that's when we started what is now the Community Foundation of Eastern Connecticut.
Which is a beautiful organization.
It is, and it really benefits the eastern third of the state of Connecticut.
It does, it totally
Yes.
does, yeah.
Yes, exactly. But that started. I talk about in the book the Guard Art Center.
Oh, we
and
love
how
the
we
Guard.
resurrected the Guard.
Oh, that was such an enormous thing.
Absolutely, and I was involved in the first 2 phases of the resurrection of the Guard, including hiring Steve Siegel, which
He's
we've
a
been blessed ever
godsend.
since. He is. He and Jeannie are absolutely wonderful.
They're
In fact,
adorable. I love them, yeah.
In fact, it was Jeannie who insisted I write this book.
Oh,
I hadn't planned on writing a book. I didn't keep a diary. I didn't keep a journal or anything like this. So the book is all from memory.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And you resurrected it all. Was that cathartic for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Did you heal old pains?
Yes.
And
Yes.
were you given new insight into your experiences? Yeah. Anything you want to share along those lines?
Some of the things I talk about, because I did, after I mentioned losing my sister.
Of course.
In 2000, and before we lost her, and she died very suddenly. Both my father and my sister died mowing our front lawn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't mow our front lawn.
Right. Was it a bee's nest or what happened?
No, it was heart attack in both cases.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And so they
Yeah.
dropped on the front lawn. So, but prior to my losing my sister so suddenly, we were talking about starting a Red Hat Society.
Oh, fun.
Yes. So 55 and over, you could wear a red hat and purple and all this. Well, I was so excited about it because as I was being forced to retire at 55, I was thinking about Jenny Joseph's poem,
Oh,
where I'm
yes,
an old
of
woman,
course.
I'll wear purple.
Yes, yes, of course. So you can be yourself and say what you...
Absolutely.
I mean, I still think we need to be gentle and tactful
Yes.
and kind, but...
I'm with you.
Yes.
I'm with you. But we had fun.
Good.
And I made a promise to myself as I was retiring from Fleet Bank at that stage of the game, that I was only going to do what was fun. And so Divine Planning was fun, working with the foundations, the grants, advising, helping as far as estate planning and plan giving are concerned. That was all part of it, plus teaching the grant writing. So I kept my hand in and enjoyed
Lots
it.
of different things.
Yes,
You are just
exactly.
multi-talented and still
Well-
vivacious.
Well, I just love what I was doing. And I say 96 was the worst year of the 52 years, of the 52 years of being in the banking arena. Because when I had Divine Planning, I didn't know the economy was going to go bad in 2008.
That was really scary when the market
Yes,
dropped like
it
that. I mean,
was.
it basically fell.
Exactly. And so I didn't know. Well, obviously income dried up because the nonprofits had to focus on getting the money in now rather than plan gifts and building their endowments and all of that. So my consulting business really dried up. In 2007, I was serving on the board with bank president, Dime Bank's bank president, Jim Cronin. And he said, Millie, I'd like to have lunch with you. Oh, okay, sure, love to. And Jim's a great guy, and he did a lot over the years. And he worked himself up through the ranks as well. all the way to president of the bank.
Oh.
Yes, and we stay in touch. And so anyhow, he asked me if I knew Tom McAvoy. And I said, no, I don't believe I do. And he said, well, I'd like to bring him along. Well, okay.
Yeah, you're open.
Yeah, sure.
You never know.
No, exactly. So we set a lunch date and all this, and we got together, and it was a very confidential, kind of off corner of a restaurant kind of thing. And they approached me about starting a trust department at Dime Bank. And of course, you know, bells and whistles went off in my head because I could get back doing what I was doing.
You loved it.
Absolutely. And so we thought we had an experienced officer coming on board with us, and I was just going to be consulting. But as it turned out, that individual was not able to come. And I said, I won't leave you hanging out there to dry. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Would you come on as an officer of the bank? And I said, yes. And so I started building up my hours. I mean, Tom was the head of the department. He was, you know, but Tom always treated me like a partner.
Nice.
And we had more fun building that trust department. And it went back to the style, you know, the personal service that we were used to providing instead of the big bank mentality.
That's lovely.
So, yeah.
That's lovely.
And I'm so proud of that trust department. And I ended up, you know, I started consulting at 65 with them, and I stayed on until I was 75.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And finally, I said, you know, I was not really happy doing multitasking and all that kind of thing.
It's too much.
Yeah, it does. And so finally, I just had to say, I'm sorry, but I think I really have reached a point where I need to retire. And I also had in mind from Jeannie about writing this book, and I knew I wouldn't get it written if I didn't retire and get busy on it.
It takes time. It takes a lot of time. I mean, first the first draft, the rough draft, and then the editing and all that process.
And now just the formatting of it.
Well, I'm really looking forward to reading it. And, you know, again, the profits you said that from your book are going to a local nonprofit that does such important, beautiful work.
To Save Futures. Yes, and because we've been involved since the very beginning, the Women's Network, and which I started, and that's where I'm actually called Mom.
Oh, I love that.
But anyhow, yes, the two organizations have partnered from the very beginning, and both are celebrating their 45th anniversary this year.
Well, happy birthday to them.
Yes,
happy anniversary to them.
Exactly,
yes,
exactly.
So Safe Futures, and we're supporting that and promoting that, and we want safe futures for men and women, because women suffer harassment and men suffer harassment too.
The last statistics I heard, 25% of the clients they serve are men.
You know, and it's just a sad commentary.
It is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, it went up to at least 35%, dealing with increased cases.
I know that opioids and drug and alcohol, it's just been really, really tough. And so your book is going to be published June 2021.
Yes.
I'm dying to get a copy of it. Looking forward to reading it. Absolutely. Yeah. And is there any advice you'd like to give to our young people?
I encourage them to read it because I want them to understand a little of the history of what was going on. Plus, I also talk about my travels and other things, including winning a trip on the Orient Express.
Oh, I love that. Well, just the wisdom, I think, that you can share, and the tenacity and your determination.
Stick-to-itiveness.
And stick-to-itiveness. I haven't heard that word. That was one of my mother's favorite words. Yeah, you just have to stick to it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You don't know when, you know, you find that pearl in the oyster. It's going to be there eventually.
Oh, so true, so true.
Yeah.
And so I want it to be inspirational to them and to older people for sharing a lot of the similar things that we've been through over our lifetime, because, as I said, the title comes from Fiddler on the Roof, and through the happiness and the tears, and we've all experienced that.